Hey, my name's Nathan, this is the Future Game Show, and wow, what a year 2024 is, where you've got teams of talented video game developers making award-winning games, and to celebrate that success, they're being closed, to celebrate that success, they are being closed. That doesn't make sense. What does closed mean? Have I had a stroke? Closed means shut down, right? Could someone find the definition of closed? Someone get me a doctor, because I need to see a doctor. I get a doctor who specialises in words, because closed can't mean what I think it does. It feels like the last year has been dominated with headlines about folk in the video games industry losing their jobs, with companies like Sega making layoffs at companies like Creative Assembly rather than just letting them make Alien Isolation 2 like God intended, and PlayStation shutting their London studio, responsible for PSVR Romp Blood and Truth, a game that allowed you to do a one-armed pull-up while smoking a chicken-flavoured vape, and I am sorry, but that's a video game moment that should have made all those developers immune from any bad things happening to them in life ever again. And most recently, Take-Two decided to shut Intercept Games and Roll7, who less than a year ago won a BAFTA for their game Rollerdrome. It's madness. That's like Christopher Nolan winning his BAFTA for Best Film, only to be told he's not allowed within 6 foot of an IMAX camera ever again. This was then quickly followed by the news that Microsoft had decided to shutter Tango Gameworks, the Japanese development team responsible for the sublime Hi-Fi Rush. Also an award-winning game, and sending out a very strong message to all Game Pass subscribers to continue paying their $11 a month, but to only expect big steamy COD blops until the end of time. Yeah, okay, Xbox just showed us a whole load of new games, and I'll be honest, I was pleasantly surprised at how strong that offering was, but the majority of it was still first-person shooters. The big surprise was more Gears of War, and anything unique that was shown just had me worrying if those companies would still be here in a year or two's time. Perfect Dark looked sick though. Plain and simple, I think it's cultural vandalism. To live in a world where people can make magic like Rollerdrome and Hi-Fi Rush and still lose their jobs, I think it is, and sorry to use a very technical business term here, and I've seen a lot of rightful outrage about this happening, but why is it happening? Why is this unrelenting happening now? Well, from what I can decipher, it comes down to 3 main things, which I will hereby be declaring as the 3 arseholes of the video game apocalypse. Number 1, COVID. Now, I'm not sure if many folk remember this, but about 4 years ago, a deadly plague swept the earth and only a handful of us survived thanks to the great work of those at Vault-Tec. During that time, while trapped inside, the only things people could do were learn to hate their family over Zoom or play video games. And games like Animal Crossing saw the medium surge in popularity with people who maybe wouldn't have normally found the time to do so. So the bigwigs decided to cash in on this, placing more money into video game development in the hopes that this newfound surge would have a sustainability that would see a massive return on their investment. Sadly though, while everyone knew that post-pandemic numbers would inevitably fall, they fell further than expected, and so that increased investment hasn't paid off, and the soulless bigwigs at the top are now trying to scrape back as much money as they can with their horrible, bony, loveless fingers. Number 2, mergers. Remember when Microsoft decided to buy every possible video game company under the sun, and what we can now only guess was a kamikaze move to take down the entire video game industry like a vengeful Titanic? Well, when a merger happens, it means you inevitably end up with doubles of many teams, marketing, PR, human resources, and sadly, that leads to the loss of employees. Wow, it's almost as if one company having a monopoly over everyone else isn't a great idea for the industry. Wild! Who knew? F***ing everyone. As well as that, we had the Embracer Group hoovering up developers like a hungry hippo before having a major investor pull out of a $2 billion investment. That investor, by the way, was linked to Saudi Arabia, so it's a bit like Dr. Octopus sadly having to pull out of the Sinister Six because he's double booked himself. Well, what's going to happen now that $2 billion has disappeared? Now, I'm no business analyst, but I really do feel like someone at the Embracer group really needs to embrace a kick in the arse. Like one of these. Like one of those. Someone at the Embracer group really needs to embrace a bit of pow. You know what I mean? Number 3, bandwagoning. And now, the final reason is potentially only a possibility, but if it's true, then it's maybe the worst reason of all. You see, companies are always looking for ways to save money, so when mass layoffs are happening elsewhere in the industry, certain companies don't want to be left out and take the opportunity to make cuts while the cutting is hot, knowing that any bad press they get will soon be overshadowed by the next company who decide to jump on the shitty bandwagon and announce their own cuts. But look, let's be real for a moment, okay? Let's play devil's advocate, because social media has been awash with vitriol that doesn't really go much deeper than all these CEOs and companies are awful, they're evil incarnate, they cheer when John Wick's dog dies. But that surely can't be the case, can it? Alright, I'm sure some of these CEOs are people you wouldn't want to share a controller with, but they can't all be monsters who shut down all studios for nothing but their own pleasure, can they? I mean, maybe they're just people. People like me and you who sometimes have to make really tough decisions. I mean, look at Phil Spencer. I can't believe he's enjoying closing Tango Gameworks. That's a man who loves video games, you can just tell. He's got the kind of weird chin that tells you he's spent as many late nights perfecting his skateboarding skills in Dead Rising as I have. And if we're really properly honest with ourselves, it's probably because games like Hi-Fi Rush and Rollerdrome, again, games I adore, most likely didn't hit their sales targets. And for all the awards they win, they're still ultimately being judged on a spreadsheet. And not to sound too Metal Gear Solid about this, but ultimately it's the system that's more the problem than the people. Because Xbox, PlayStation, Nintendo, they're all publicly listed companies that not only have to make a profit, but have to exponentially increase those profits year on year. That's their main goal. And sometimes great art isn't profitable. So you've got a business model that needs games and games that need a business model to get into the hands of players. Sometimes they just don't fit together. I think what I'm ultimately saying here, and it's a statement I think everyone can get behind to some extent, is spreadsheets. Now, this is just all unrelentingly grim, and my first thought whenever I see this happening always goes to the people, the developers, the marketing folk, the families affected. But my second thought is that I can't help but think it seems like these publishers have a huge lack of foresight. Because these were talented teams making mid-sized, critically acclaimed games. And who knows what the next game is going to be? It was potentially going to be the franchise that we'd all be playing in about 40 years' time. Because look, what do all these companies want? It's a Grand Theft Auto 5, right? Something that continues to sit in the top 10 list of games well over 10 years after its launch. But it's easy to forget now that the quadruple A mega franchise that is Grand Theft Auto started with a scrappy PS2 game that had more charm than it did polish. And Rockstar then had the chance to experiment with different games and different genres and then bring all of that knowledge to Grand Theft Auto 5. I'm not being funny, but no one looked twice at the original Witcher game, but given time and space to develop, CD Projekt Red made The Witcher 3. Even Insomniac, who made their name with Spyro the Dragon and Ratchet & Clank, took that expertise and made Spider-Man. Before Naughty Dog were making the most hated golfing simulator on earth, they were working on a rough gem called Crash Bandicoot. And of course, look, teams change and evolve, and it's not going to be the same group of people making Crash Bandicoot that did The Last of Us, but clearly there's a successful practice and ethos that's being carried across the generations. And those are lessons and expertise and best-selling games that you lose by shutting these smaller studios. And more than ever, it feels like these mid-sized teams are hugely important. Because these days, games are either being made by one person doing all the work and being legally required to have at least 4 mental breakdowns while doing so, or a team of 20,000 in which one developer works on nothing but a single character's nasal hairs for 8 years before the game is released, and while the nasal hairs are beautifully realised, the game dies on its arse. It's not just games though, this is something we're seeing in all media. the complete loss of the middle ground. The place where people who have made their first game or film or TV show are allowed to try something more ambitious, to really develop themselves and make the hits that then go on to become these huge cultural touchstones. But the problem at the moment is that we don't have that. You've either got homegrown things or huge budgeted behemoths. You know, you're either watching Fallout, which clearly takes a lottery-winning amount of money to make about 6 seconds of, or you're watching a TikTok of someone cleaning a really dirty rug, who is doing it simply for the love of cleaning a really dirty rug. You go to the cinema and you're watching Avengers 6, but that new micro-budget indie film written, directed by and starring one person is supposed to be great. Oh my god, I wonder what they'll do next. Oh, they're directing Avengers 7. Okay. Yeah, fair enough. God rest their soul. Look, I don't know how to solve this. I don't know how to wrap this up and finish it, but all I know is that games like Hi-Fi Rush and Rollerdrome were gorgeous pieces of art that I loved playing. And to see those companies being shut, it's just... And where does this go next? Because clearly the way we're making games at the moment isn't sustainable if great teams like this have to go. Might be time to stop playing video games and get into, I don't know, books. Are books doing any better? I fucking hate books. Hey, thank you very much for watching, especially if you got all the way to the end. Please do check out some of the other stuff we've got on the FGS channel, including a playlist of me talking about all the big discussions happening in the games industry at the moment. I promise that they're not as depressing as this one. Some of them are, but some of them are also quite nice and fun. I don't know. Check it out. Love ya. Bye.